All right, lads, welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball, episode 67. I'm not going to do it.
Yes, you are.
No, I can't be. I can't be doing that. It's too cringy. My sister would definitely want me to do it if she watched the podcast, though, constantly with the 6-7. Man, it doesn't even mean anything. But myself and Shane are here back once again. We were very excited for the week ahead. Very nervous as well. Obviously, Ireland playing in Prague. We mentioned later on everything about that in the podcast. We go into detail on it. But Shane, I want to get your take on something since we don't have the NBA portion this week. What do you make of the news of Cade Cunningham with he has a collapsed lung? Like, I don't know how long he's going to be out for, and we said that he could get the MVP because other players miss out on games, and now he's not going to reach the number of games needed to even get to the award, and the other lads are. So I think it's a massive loss. It could change the Pistons season if he's out for a long time.
I think the Pistons season has already changed for the worse with the way things have been going recently. They've kind of just like they came into the season, no one expected them to be doing what they have done. So I think they're just kind of coming back down to average now. And without him as well, I think it kind of puts a real cooler on them in any sort of a playoff fight. If they come up against someone who's just elite without him, it's going to be a lot tougher. I really feel for him. He's been having some season from. They've been having some season as a team to lose your best player like this to a collapsed lung. However, like what even happened? I just saw Michael put in that he collapsed his lung. I haven't even looked it up yet. It's wild for that to happen. And he's definitely, if he's back again before the end of the season, I'd be very surprised. I don't think he'll play any of the last 15 games. And then we'll see about a playoff run after. But yeah, I feel for him. I feel for them. And I think it's just kind of, it's put a real damper on that side of the draw now as well, because it was already poor enough, as we say over and over again. But for the best team to lose their best player before the playoffs is just absolutely sickening.
Yeah, I think he was out for a few games, and I think they were obviously assessing him or whatever, and then they just announced that that was the case. So I have no idea how it happened, but I think if he does come back, if he has to miss the rest of the season and then he comes back for the playoffs in April, he won't be basically as fresh as he could be, and that's going
Mm.
to definitely be a hindrance to them. And if they slip maybe behind the Celtics and even the Knicks here, if they go on a losing streak, then that's going to make it even more difficult because they'll have a tougher matchup than they would have had. And after such a great season, we already see injuries now coming into play and coming into our minds of how it could affect the playoffs, which we hate because it always happens and it always rules out at least two or three teams' injuries that are picked up during. But this is beforehand, and I have no idea what the recovery timeline is for a collapsed lung. So I'm sure we'll have more on that next week when Michael is on. And so we do talk about this later in the episode, but we'll throw it in now. Right now for this week, we just did football and NFL stuff with the usual Gan Seans and power rankings because next week Shane will be in Prague for the Ireland game and Michael will be joining me. So you'll get the episode a day earlier. It'll be on Thursday instead of the usual Friday release. And we'll do an NBA special. We'll just be talking NBA, everything in the lead up to the playoffs. So you'll get your full NBA fix there with that one. Anything else going on with you before I get into the rundown?
No, I went to Finn Harps last week for the 3D match. One hell of a drive. I have three stadiums left in the country to tick off now outside of that, so I'm taking them down one by one. I have two that I won't get to this year unless we get them in the cup because they're in the top division, Drogheda and Derry, but I'll hopefully get Wexford tick off when we play them away. The Friday we come back, actually, I think we're going up to it, getting off the plane and straight to Wexford. So other than that, it's been a quiet week. Paddy's Day was very much I very much Paddy's Day on Paddy's Day. And other than that, we'll say nothing else. We'll let you get into the rundown.
Still recovering from that 2 days later, are you?
Yeah, forever.
Yeah, you don't have the usual punch to your words at times in the episode, especially when you do
Yeah.
say something very funny that you'll have to listen out for during the Irish section. But
Yeah.
we'll get into the rundown of the episode. So we started with the NFL, something similar to last week. We did a draft of our favorite trades that went out during this off season. So last week we did our favorite free agency moves. So this week we did our favorite trades back and forth in a draft style. Then we talked about Kyler Murray joining the Vikings and what that's going to do for them, how far they can go. before giving our Gan Seans picks and an update on the score there. We moved on to performance of the weekend in the Premier League last weekend, and we joined in on the debate. Is Bruno Fernandes going to win Player of the Season, or should he win it? And then preview the Carabao Cup final before a look at Ireland's squad for the games against Czechia and hopefully either Denmark or North Macedonia the following week, and how we think that Czechia game is going to go. And then we wrapped up with the power rankings. So a lot of good stuff in there for you. NBA will be coming next week. Let's jump into this week's episode. All right, so we're going to start with the NFL. We just got NFL and football free this week because we've got a full slate. NBA next week, as you'll have heard in the intro. So we want to do something similar to what we did last week. Last week we did the best free agency moves of the NFL offseason so far. So this week we're going to do the best trades of the NFL offseason so far. So you're first up this time in the draft. Last week I went first, so we're going to do draft back and forth, same as last week. So Shane, you're up first. What was your best move? Sorry, should I say
Yeah,
best
to be
trade?
honest, I think there was only one option here, and I'm sure if you were going first, you'd have gone for this one as well. But I can't really look past the Trent McDuffie move. I just think the Rams have done really, really well. We've said it now two or three times already that yes, they've given up four picks, but it wasn't their top first round pick. And none of the others are really like it's not really any consequence to them, and they've sorted a position that they really needed to fix. So I just think Trent McDuffie's a no-brainer to go first here.
Yeah, I had McDuffie first as my first pick as well. So I'll move on to my second option then, for number two, and that's Jalen Waddle going to the Broncos. It's a very recent trade, but I think it was great value. I think McDuffie gave up a lot because he's worth a lot. This one, I think they gave up a lot and he's worth a lot too. So I think both sides got what they needed out of this as they did with the McDuffie one. Broncos, they get another weapon to add to Cortland Sutton for Knicks. I think that's important. He's been very good for the Dolphins, so I think Waddle is a very good addition. And to give up number 30 as their pick in the next draft, I don't think it's much to give up. Along with a third and a fourth, and then you get a fourth in return, and you actually move up in the fourth round. So really, all you're giving up here is kind of like Jalen Waddle for number 30, and I think he's much better than anybody you could get that's unproven at that level in the draft. So great move by the Broncos to get him in, I think.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a bit of an overpay, but then when you explained it there, I didn't realize it was a fourth round going back to him as well.
Yeah.
So it does actually make it a bit more feasible. It also means Miami have 11 draft picks going into this draft this summer. So let's see if they can do they'll do a Cleveland or if they'll do something proper and actually build a team around something else. They have plenty of options here going forward. And for my second pick, I'm going to go with I really like the David Montgomery move to the Texans. First, Scruggs a fourth and a seventh. I don't think they've given up a whole lot, and they really needed someone like him in here. He wanted to be a kind of an out and out number one running back, not splitting the field anymore with that other monster Gibbs as well. So I think this is a really good move for both him and the Texans. And it's I don't think that's too much of an overpay either. To yeah, Scruggs isn't it's not great to lose him, but they've gotten what they need and they can kind of build around that defense they had already and whatever they've left of it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that one is on my list as well, and I think it's something that it could prove to be massive. Like right now it looks like a solid move, but it could prove to be absolutely huge if he like really steps up as a number one back. So I like that shout. Next I've got another cornerback. Well, a guy who can play more than just cornerback, but that's technically his position, and that's Taron Johnson. Um, I think the Raiders did very well to get him in. They got a seventh round pick as well, and all they had to give up was a sixth round pick for him from the Bills. So he can pretty much line up everywhere. He can play anywhere in the defensive backfield. He's a great reader of the game. That Bills secondary was good for a long number of years when they had Jordan Poyer, Matt Milano, and Christian Benford, Taron Johnson, like a lot of good names working together. So I think he brings a lot of experience that the Raiders desperately need. And yeah, I think he's a very good addition for what they gave up for him. I think it was well worth it.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'm going to go for a defensive player this time as well. I'm going to give the Jets a bit of props here. I'm going to go for Devondre Sweat for Jermaine Johnson. The Jets' run defense has been absolutely criminally bad for a long, long time. This fella is absolutely huge. When he's on his form, he just eats people up for fun. He's not great at sacks, only 3 sacks in his last 2 seasons. But if you just get him going, along with the other two lads they've signed as well, whose names have escaped me now, I think it's good for Aaron Glenn in particular. Jermaine Johnson didn't really fit the defense he wanted to go with either, so to get rid of him and get in someone that will really help, I've no complaints about this one really for the Jet side of things.
Yeah, I like it. I had Jermaine Johnson further down the list. I don't think I'll get to him, but I think I like him as a player. But when he didn't want to
Yeah,
be there to get somebody who's very, very good and is exactly what you need. And Aaron Glenn is going to play more of that like heavy defensive line to try and stop the run. So yeah, good move by the Jets. Zaire Franklin then is next for me. I think the Packers did a solid job because they lost Rashawn Gary. Obviously, they're not the same player. They don't play in the same position, but it is a high volume tackler that they bring in and somebody at linebacker who can really work. They gave up Colby Wooden. I think they're pretty solid at DT, so I think they were okay on that front. And to bring in another good linebacker, it's it's mad when I look at the stats for Franklin. I knew he did a lot for the Colts, but he recorded at least 125 tackles in his last 4 seasons, and 644 total tackles in that span is more than any other player, which was pretty crazy. So they've got him now to go alongside some of their other elite players on defense, including obviously Micah Parsons when he comes back. So yeah, I like that move by the Packers to add to their defense once again.
yeah, you've actually mentioned my next one. Then my next one is Rashan Gary going to the Cowboys for a 2027 fourth round pick. He's just really, really solid. He's something that the Cowboys have needed. Again, none of these deals seem to be the other team giving up a whole lot to get in what they need, and it's kind of suiting both teams a lot of the time. And this is another one that suits both teams. 15 games last year, 45 combined tackles, 25 solo tackles, and 20 assisted tackles. 7.5 sacks on top of that as well. So he had a really good season last year, and he'll really help this Cowboys defense when he gets in the door and gets going with what they're trying to do there.
Yeah, I think he's racked up like at least 7.5 sacks the last 3 seasons. So I think
Yeah,
it's a good addition for them, especially considering what they lost last year. We'll stay on the Cowboys then, and we'll send somebody away from them, and that's Osa Digizua. I really like him at defensive tackle. I'm not 100% sure why they gave him up. I guess maybe because they have Kenny Clark, and they also got in Gary just now, so maybe they don't need anybody else in that system. But I really liked him, and I think they got a third rounder. Okay, that shows how high of a talent he is, but I think it's really important that the Niners continue to add on that defense because some of their players are getting older. So I like that move for them. He wasn't as productive last year in terms of sacks and overall tackles, but he's great against the run when he does get going. Obviously, the Cowboys weren't in general, but that wasn't solely down to him. He had 4.5 sacks the season before. And I think across the board he's been very solid in his 5 seasons so far with the Cowboys. So I like the move for the Niners. In a position of need for them, really, they fill it nicely.
yeah, it's not too bad. Is this my fifth pick?
Yeah, this is your final one.
Yeah, so there's a couple that I kind of want to give honorable mentions to, but I don't want to come a cut across you either. So I'll wait till you've done yours. I'm actually going to go with Justin Fields going to KC for a sixth rounder here. Don't ask me why, but it just feels like a really, really cheap deal for the Chiefs getting someone a real goal line threat, very much in the kind of the same mold as Patrick Mahomes, but obviously about 20 levels below what he can do. But put him on the goal line with Kenneth Walker, and they have a really, really good chance there in the red zone of kind of just running in a couple of field goals, running in a couple of touchdowns and can't run in field goals. And I just think he's a really good pickup for a team that has a good offensive line, obviously. To have him behind him, he's so much ability to run as he showed last year with the Jets as well. He just didn't fit what Aaron Glenn wanted, and I think the Chiefs have gotten an absolute steal out of that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of times Andy Reid as well does like adventurous stuff on offense. So
Mm,
he could almost use him. Like I know he might play a couple of games.
a running back.
Yeah, not even like like in a way that they bring him in and sit Mahomes maybe for like a snap and have some kind of mad play drawn up. And I think that would be something that I could easily see Reid doing. Especially if he gets a couple of games early in the season while Mahomes is rehabbing or fully recovering, then he might get his feet under him. And I'm sure he'll look a
Mm,
lot better than he did with the Jets, as you said. So I'll wrap
would be
this up
hard.
then. I've got a couple of honorable mentions as well, but first up, I'll go with DJ Moore as my last pick in this draft. Now, it was a lot that the Bills gave up for him. I think in hindsight, looking at like what Jalen Waddle went for, I think he's probably a better player than Moore is because Moore is a bit inconsistent and he does have his limitations, but he is still a very good wide receiver. And I think they gave up a second round pick and they received a fifth rounder back. So they still have the same amount of picks in the draft after the trade, but they just basically get in a guy who you'd definitely say he's better than the production you'd get out of a punt on a second round wide receiver, which could be hit or miss. And then you still keep your fifth rounder. So Josh Allen's got his main guy. I'm sure he'll make life easier for him considering he didn't really have anybody, and Shakir can then be a 1B option, which I think is much more suited to what his skill set is. So I like the move all around for the Bills to basically assess an area that they've been lacking in for a long time. But what are your honorable mentions here? Who have you got?
Minka Fitzpatrick for a seventh round pick is a
Mhm.
good one for the Jets as well. Michael Pittman and a seventh for a sixth round pick isn't bad either. I really do like that move. DJ Moore was sixth on my list. It was kind of a toss up between going for him or Fields. I had a feeling you'd bring DJ Moore anyway, so I didn't really need to bring him up. And yeah, yeah, that's it then because you've kind of stolen the rest of my ones and I've done my list of 10 there. So what did you have?
I had a lot of similar ones to you. I already mentioned Jermaine Johnson earlier, that
Hmm.
I liked him, but one I did have would be my next pick is Titus Howard. I think the Browns did pretty well to get him in because
Mm.
Browns lost every single starter on their offensive line. I think it's the first time that happened since like 1970 to them, and they're going to be absolutely in a mess next season anyway. Offensive line is a very hard position to sort, and Titus Howard has played in every offensive line position except for center, and he's done it competently with the Texans. So I think it's smart just to give up a fifth rounder for a guy at least that can fill holes for you across the season. Outside of that, then I had Geno Smith as somebody who he's not going to light the world on fire. I know you're not going to be too happy with him as the Jets QB, but I think it was a smart move because he's the guy that's not going to get you too many wins. And if you shore up the defense, if the defense improves and he does, he's the reason you lose games. That would actually be a good formula for the Jets because you'd still get a high pick when the draft is great with QBs next season. So it's not a good move for the player. I think it's a good move for an organization that knows that they don't want to win too many games. So that's the
Yeah,
reason why
fair.
I have him in mind. But I didn't actually think he's an overly solid player. I actually never we never got your take on him being the Jets' new QB since it was announced. Obviously, you're our Jets fan here. So what's your thinking after hearing that?
So, like, I really wanted Kyler Murray, and we'll get on to him in a couple of minutes. I didn't want the Jets to go and do this, where they go and bring in another stand in for a year, waste another year of, well, just wasting another year of me watching him, suffering through him for another year again. And this is just kind of, it's such a Jets move to do. Like, no Jets quarterback has had a winning season since he was there. The only one with a 500 or more is your man Simeon, and he went 2-2. Everyone else has a losing record since Geno Smith was the quarterback. What was it, 13 or 14 years ago? It's so Jets, and I really do hope they have something lined up for next season when it comes to the draft next year. Maybe Manning or the lad that just decided he didn't want to go into the draft this year. Maybe one of the two of them next year would really help. But yeah, it's just like it's just setting us up for another season of absolute torture. And poor Brees Hall has been franchise tagged, so he can't go anywhere either. Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. I'm not overly confident again. Unlike last year, I won't be going into this year's preview with my head held high and thinking anything's going to happen because we're going straight into another losing season. And I feel bad for Aaron Glenn as well because his coaching career is going to be starting off absolutely horrifically when he has two losing seasons. And even if that's what the organization want him to do, it's very hard for him to come around then and say, oh, yeah, well, now I'll just go and get another head coach job. He's going to be back as a defensive coordinator in 2 years, I think, or maybe 3 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if they have a really, really bad season, even if that's what they want for a higher pick, I think they tank him and throw him out at that point because
Yeah,
they've got so many picks in the next draft, and they'll want somebody else in there picking someone. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be solid. And also, it's hilarious Geno Smith back there the way it ended the last time with him because he didn't show up for one of his defensive tackles like football camp after the guy paid
yeah,
for his flight and his accommodation and all, and then he wouldn't even pay the guy back. So your man just broke his nose or broke his jaw. Actually, it was in the dressing room, and
his
they
jaw,
sent him
yeah.
off. So, yeah, welcome back, Gino. Couldn't be more Jets in my opinion. The way everything
Yeah,
unfolded, but you did mention Kyler Murray as your ideal candidate for the Jets coming into this off season. I think a lot of teams would be looking at him because you would have got him for a minimum, similar to Gino, but you get a much better player and a much younger one. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year in his rookie season, of course, two-time Pro Bowler. He's been solid across his career. Like you look at maybe his best years earlier on with Arizona, he had a pretty good year in his first and second year were very good. His third year too. Like you're looking at a player who has a lot of potential, but as time went on, it's like first season 16 games, second 16, third 14, then 11, and then 8. You could see the injury issues start to creep in, and the play was also declining. 17 games then in the season after that, but the Cardinals were great at the start and then they completely fell apart. So that's when the questions really
mm,
started getting on him. And even though that was his second highest total in terms of overall yardage. And then last year he only played 5 games and they just clearly made it evident that they did not want him anymore. So I think he has a lot of potential and landing with the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell, I don't think it could be a better landing spot because he seems to be a QB whisperer, and Sam Darnold arrived there as a much lesser player than Murray, in my opinion, and he's gone on to be a Super Bowl winner since he started working with Kevin O'Connell and then moved on from there.
yeah. So I just like him as a player because of what he does. His running game is really, really good. So 29 attempts last year, 173 yards. We won't really look at that one. It's his second season, 133 attempts, 819 rushing yards in a season. That's just really, really impressive. And 11 touchdowns on top of that as well. They can get him back to anywhere near the sort of a player. And as you said, Kevin McDonald is the perfect man for us. Imagine having him as an option running. You have Addison, you have JJ outside him to pass to two really solid options as well. And 1.3 million for the year as well is the rumors what they're paying him because of what Arizona owe him.
Yeah,
So it feels like it feels like a bit of a win-win here for him and for the organization. Get him in, see if he can get his games back up to over 10, have a winning season, which he probably will with the Vikings here, and they don't have to rely on JJ McCarthy, which is obviously a massive benefit for him because he's quite clearly not very good. Despite them waiting for him for a year, everything being built around him, losing Sam Darnold to give him a go, and he's just not the answer. He's a backup quarterback at best. If he stays fit, he's so stable, and he'll be really, really good there. And again, the coach there is just going to make him the player he was in his first 2 seasons again. I think it's a great move for both him and for the organization.
yeah. I think it was perfection for the Vikings who didn't want to go splash on a quarterback because then you're making it clear that you're punting completely on your high draft pick that you had,
Mm,
JJ McCarthy, who calls himself nine, and
yeah.
was just absolutely woeful. He'd be lucky to get 9 minutes on the pitch this season. Like 11 passing touchdowns from him last season, 12 interceptions, 72.6 rating, 27 sacks, 57% completion. Just really, really awful, awful stuff. And even Murray at his worst wasn't as bad as that.
No.
And he has so much more potential. I think you looked at Darnold coming in there in his first season, he had 14 wins. Last year, Kevin O'Connell with JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Brosmer as his starting quarterbacks, he went 9-8. and the line is set at 8.5 wins this season. I think that's outrageous. I think it was 8.5 last season. I went with the over, or it was 9.5, and I went with the over, and it was close, one or the other. No, it was 8.5. Yeah, because I hit that. But 8.5 again. Surely I have to go for that because there's no way they're going to have a losing season with Kyler Murray there.
Yeah, not a hope.
Because Kevin O'Connell is just he's done so much and he hasn't had a guy who's really good on the ground yet. So as you said, this is one of his biggest strengths. So let's see what he can dial up because right now in this division, I think it's wide open. The Bears were great, but they had so much injury luck on their side. They didn't have any injury issues on their offensive line, even though they signed so many new pieces and it was so rare that they all stayed fit. The Lions, you don't know if they're coming or going right now. And then the Packers, they haven't done a whole lot this offseason that would instill confidence in you that they're going to take a big step. So I think this division is going to be competitive, and I don't think there's any reason why the Vikings can't challenge and push maybe to even be the team that wins it.
I agree with you 100%. I still think the Lions will go into this as favourites. Um, they're going to have such an easy schedule compared to last year with how they finished the season, and they're going to get off to a hot start, I think, and I think it'll be hard to catch them. But if anyone is going to catch them, it will be this Vikings team. And if, as I said, if Kyler Murray gets going from the off, then everyone around actually needs to watch out because with Kevin McConnell, Kevin, what's
O'Connell.
his name? Kevin O'Connell. This Vikings team could be scary with the wide receivers they have with him running with Aaron Jones. If they hold on to him and keep him fit, then they have some serious talent coming out of that backfield. And if the offensive line can just do anything decent, then they'll be absolutely flying it.
Yeah, I think so too. Brian Flores still there on the defensive side of things,
Yeah.
so they'll be even better than before with another season of him. It's funny that the only thing I'm thinking about right now is the playoffs, like for them. And I'm thinking Kyler Murray was so
Yeah.
poor in his one playoff game where he had two interceptions, two sacks, 40.9 rating. But it was against the Rams in that season that the Rams won the Super Bowl. So look, can't get on them too hard, but he wasn't woeful in that. So it'll be interesting to see. The narrative will definitely come up again if they do get back to the playoffs with him of
Mhm.
can he do it. So interesting storyline, I think. Since we have no NBA, we've only got two sports to cover. We'll go into Gan Seans as our second thing here. We usually leave it a little bit,
Just
but
2 seconds. My phone keeps vibrating and it didn't put on
no
sleep
worries.
mode. Sorry.
No
Continue there.
worries. Ready to go? So last week we had another week where we didn't get a 5 pointer, but I'm happy with my results from last week because I picked up 2 points, stretched the lead back out to three. So I'm 28 to 25 up. We both had Newcastle to beat Chelsea. That came off. We both had the Wolves to beat the Thunder. That did not come off. And then you had the Suns to beat the Celtics, which didn't come off. But I had the Raptors to beat the Pistons, which did, which did come off in Toronto. A great win for the Raptors. So I picked up two there. I'm gonna throw out my picks first this week. I found it very hard this week to pick. I thought there
Mm.
was a kind of a lack of options in both sports, so I ended up going to NBA in the end. First of all, I went with the Jazz to beat the Sixers. I know my team, but I just don't trust them one bit because who knows who's going to be playing. Like Tyrese Maxey's out for another 2 weeks. Oubre's out for at least another week. Paul George, this will be his last game before he's back from the ban. Edgecombe is nursing an injury. And then obviously Embiid is still not returned from that oblique strain. He might be back, but odds are he probably plays tonight and then doesn't play that one. So I could just see the Sixers losing, even though the Jazz are 20 and 48 and the Sixers are 37 and 32. So I'm going with that as my first. Second up, I'm going with West Ham to beat Villa away. West Ham are 14 to 5, Villa are 19 to 20. I just think I don't trust Villa lately. They don't play well. They're playing again tonight in the Carabao in the Europa League, and
Opa.
I just think that West Ham have been on good form. They'll nick like a 1-0 win here in a stodgy game. And then last up, I'll go with the Magic to beat the Lakers. Magic are 38 and 20. Lakers are 44 and 25. I think the Magic have been good lately. It's funny when Paolo was out earlier and in the season it was just Franz and Desmond Bain and they looked good. Now Franz is out and it's just Paolo and Desmond Bain. They look good again. and the in between where they had all three, they didn't look good. So I
Mm.
just think that it'll be a tough one on the road for the Lakers, who've played a lot of games. This week they played the Rockets twice. They're playing again tonight, and then the Magic is the next one on this road trip. So I think, yeah, 11 p.m. on Saturday, I've got the Magic winning that.
Yeah, so I have two of the same as you. I have West Ham to beat Villa and the Jazz to beat the Sixers as well. The only difference I have the Warriors 33 and 36 to beat the Hawks, who are 36 and 30, 38 and yeah, 38 and 31. Again, it just seems to be getting harder as the weeks go on. I was really hoping Man City would be underdogs against Arsenal, but they're both odds on, so I couldn't go there either. So the Premier League was impossible. So I just picked the one I could and then went over to the NBA. And even that took me about 15 minutes of going through everything to pick two out. So I have West Ham, the Warriors, and the Jazz.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. It took me ages to decide on the NBA. And my last pick came down to either that Warriors pick or the Magic, and they end up on the Magic. So yeah, very close to being all three the same. Let's see how we go. Don't think there's too many options, so let's hope the ones we picked are gonna give us a few results.
Surely.
Surely you're due a few more points anyway, I think.
Yeah, shocking. After I walked it last year.
Yeah, 3 points still though. A 5 pointer could change everything in the next few weeks before the season ends. But we'll move on to some football action then. Performance of the weekend, same as the game we previewed last week. United beating Villa 3-1, which I predicted perfectly, by the way. Not very often that happens, so I have to get that in there. United in general looked ready to bounce back from that Newcastle loss, though it didn't really mess around. I think although it did go back to 1-1, I think the fact that the whole game they were more positive, they didn't look like they had just lost a game when they usually do. You can tell that they just lost usually. And then to go 1-1, they'd usually just fall apart at that point, but they didn't panic. They exploited that Villa high line really nicely with that like Mbumo dummy run before Cunha got his run in, and kind of had the line scrambling. I thought that goal was beautiful, that pass from Bruno and the finish by Cunha. And then Sesko actually scoring a scrappy goal for once. As a lot of his goals have been nice finishes, so I think is a proper striker's goal, which is nice to see too. Casemiro looked brilliant. Cunha fought for everything as usual, and I just think it was nice for I know Villa play a high line, but a lot of the time they do sit in when other team does have the ball in their half. They're kind of hard to break down, and for once United looked like they were able to break them down, which is something they haven't been doing the last few weeks, and in recent years they've struggled to do that. So a lot of positive signs from the win, I think, and I was really impressed with them.
Yeah, so it went exactly as we suspected it would, really. We both had called United wins. We both said Villa would score. And yeah, like United were just all over him from start to finish. Cunha, as you mentioned, brilliant. Bruno, brilliant. Mbuemo off the ball, excellent. Kobe Mainu, like what Ruben Amorim didn't see in him is what something I will never understand. And it's probably the reason he's not still in this job, because if he was playing Mainu beside Casemiro and Bruno further up, then he probably would still have a job.
Yeah.
Casemiro, it's like him saying he's leaving has just lifted him. Like he's it's now like you now think it's like, oh, can we actually get him to sign a new contract? Because he's so good at winning headers from corners, and it's either defensive or attacking. Either way, he still wins nearly every single header. I think Martinez is really poor in that corner goal. From every angle I've seen, it kind of goes past his hand. I don't understand how you're letting the ball go across you like that and into the far corner. But it is an absolutely smashing header. And then yeah, Bruno was excellent again. Another two assists, I think. I don't know if he got the assist for the Seshko one. I'm not
Two, yeah.
100% sure. I don't think so. But I think he's been absolutely remarkable for City since Carrick has gone in there. And we
City.
said last week, if United won this, then I think they have kind of wrapped up the top four now. And I do agree with that. I do think they're set now in the top four, top five.
Yeah, they look fairly solidified there, and I think you bring up Bruno, and we want to get in on this debate that everyone is
You're
having
welcome.
right now. And yeah, nice transition there. And I'll let it slide that you did say that he plays for City since Carr came in, but uh, I'll wrong side of Manchester. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting one. So what I'm referring to is, should Bruno Fernandes win Premier League Player of the Season? Now, if you're looking statistically and you're looking at the eye test, I think on both counts you should probably say yes, because he's been the one solid, consistent player on United's team for the last 4 or 5 years. He's dragged them through so many moments. Anything positive that's happened has been through him. I know other teams don't like him because he whinges to the ref, but that's what kind of a captain does at times, especially Portuguese one, that they tend to get in the ref's ear a lot. But he isn't like a dirty player like Bernardo Silva often is. He's someone who cares a lot about his team. He's given every single player on the pitch instructions like as often as possible, telling them exactly what he wants, where he wants. Those two assists, both of them, he just stopped after he put the ball in because he knew how good the chances he provided was. Like he provided so many chances over the last few seasons and nobody was there to finish them. Finally, he has guys who are able to finish for him. Um, 98 chances created this season, according to FootMob, and 40 more than Declan Rice, who's in second with 58. Szoboszlai is in third with 56. It's just crazy to be nearly double the next player. He's just a creative workhorse, and he does so much more than that for the team. And he played half the season in defensive midfield, which is madness to think. That's an even bigger crime than not playing Menu for Amarim, in my opinion. The fastest midfielder ever to reach 100 goals and 100 assists for one club. That can be found really in records. There's probably something back in the 1800s, but that's the only player that can be found to have done that. In the speed he has done. The only two players in recent records that have done it quicker in any position were Suarez and Mbappe, who did it for Barca and PSG. So that's the kind of company he's in, and he's playing in midfield, and they're both forwards. Did it quicker than Messi and Ronaldo did it. Obviously, they had way more goals at this point, but it just shows you the ability he's had in a very poor United team. And I think there's nobody on that Arsenal team who stands out to me that has done enough to win player of the season. So I think this should be a season where a player who doesn't play on the best team or the team who wins the league gets it because he's just been exceptional. Five player of the weeks. So much to say about him that I could just go on for hours. Like,
I might let you go on forever because I don't want to have to talk about him as player of the year. I don't actually like any of the options here. So I have the odds up in front of me. Declan Rice is obviously currently the favourite. And if he was still playing internationally for Ireland, he wouldn't be next to near the top of this list of people. I'm not even joking. I'm not saying that facetiously. Like, I genuinely do believe that if he was still playing for Ireland, that he wouldn't be getting as much talked about as much as he is. His corners are brilliant. Yeah, fair play. He scored a couple of goals, blah, 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 whatever. He's not like this Arsenal team have been there's no one on this Arsenal team. Maybe Gabriel. Okay, maybe because he scores a lot of goals from corners and he's just he dives, he throws himself around. He's not the kind of person you want to see winning a Player of the Year award. Like there was one against Bayer Leverkusen and someone touched him in the back and his legs come up like he's diving. The one against Spurs
it's
was
horrendous.
absolutely horrific. So he's not the kind of player you want winning this award. Haaland, again, he had a good start to the season. He's kind of fallen off. I think Semenyo is a good outside bet at 14 to 1 here, 18 to 1 in some places. But I just think it's been, like we said it last week, that the Premier League has been a bit poor this year. And I think every single player has kind of fell for that as well, bar maybe Bruno, who's just getting an assist every single week. I think he now has is it 16 assists? Nine of them are from corners or free kicks and seven from open play. And it's hard to look past him, especially when everyone around him is an Arsenal player who hasn't done enough to win this award for me either. So I just think it's a race that's going to come down to the wire. I think if United can get the second, which I think they're in with a good shout now because I think City have been really, really average recently. If United finish second, then I think he walks into it. But I think if Arsenal win the league, they will give it to the English Declan Rice, but they wouldn't give it to the Irish Declan Rice.
Yeah, it's hard to argue at that point. I think it's really hard as well to watch some Arsenal games when the commentary is obviously supporting him because he is an English player, same way the lads would do it on the Irish commentary. So that's not a knock on the
Mm.
commentator, but it shouldn't be done at the club level. Because you hear sometimes like the other night he made a horrendous mistake and it was like the other player who was on the end of the pass. I think let's just say it was like Gyökeres. He got blamed for it, even though Rice made an absolute hames of it. And I was just like, this is just consistent. the stuff we're going to see now over the next few months of Rice propaganda to try and get him this player of the season, yeah, it's not gonna be nice to see. He's money on to win it. And
Hmm.
it's hilarious as well because obviously Bruno's assists, his quality of delivery is so good. There's only two other players who've had at least 7 assists from open play, and then he has the extra 9 from set pieces. And now all of a sudden it's acting like his assists aren't worth anything because they're from set pieces, and now Sky Sports are
Yeah,
using that on their
when did
graphics.
that become a thing?
Never.
Yeah, but when did that become a thing? That
It's
open
as
play
soon as
assist
it's
versus all assists.
as soon as
It
it's
was
a
just again, it
United
was
player,
another.
it's brought
Yeah.
in because that's what sells on Sky and Talksport and all these crappy media outlets that just want to basically rage bait fans and then appease the fans of every other club to be like, oh yeah, look,
Mm,
he only assists from corners. Like he's created 98 chances. We know he's elite in chance
mm.
creation. So it's the most ever for United in a season as well, that amount of assists. And it's 4 off the record that Henry and Kevin De Bruyne have. So if he can
And
get 5
Salah,
assists in the next, how many games do we have left? 9, I think, is it for United?
9 games left, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
9. So if he can manage that, then I think that surely solidifies it because if you can get the assist record in a season, that a lot of players probably haven't been up to the level that you would consider player of the season worthy, then I think yeah, he deserves it for me. So I also think you mentioned Semenyo. I think if City did make a comeback and won the league, then he should win it because he was so good with
Yeah.
Bournemouth and he's been good, but they've just fallen apart. So there's not much really can be said for that. So we did speak about Arsenal there a lot. We'll move on to their game this weekend as our preview. They're playing Man City. It's the Carabao Cup final. It's going to be an interesting game. In recent history, Arsenal have been the team have been on top in this tie. City haven't beaten them since 2023. 3 losses for them and 3 draws. But before that, City won 15 out of 16. So an absolutely mad, dominant run over Arsenal. But now it's shifted over the last couple of years. It would be Arteta's first trophy with the Gunners since 2020 when they won the FA Cup. City just went one season without trophies last year. Obviously, the year before they won the Premier League, so they'll be looking to break their drought and get a cup under their belt. Current form would lead towards you saying Arsenal are going to win it, but at times they've looked unconvincing. And maybe Pep will have something up his sleeve, but I'm interested to hear what you think is going to happen in this game.
I think this is where Arsenal have finally come a bit unstuck. This is a City team full of players who played in final after final after final, coming up against an Arsenal team who most of them probably weren't around in 2020 to play in that last final. It's very hard to get your first one over the line. And especially when you're coming up against a team of serial winners. Okay, they haven't won anything in the last 18 months, but this is still a team of superstars. You just know how to get over the line to win trophies. The kind of game Haaland is 100% going to show up for and do something. I think it's going all the way to penalties here, and I think City are going to nick it on penalties. I think it's going to be very, very cagey, just the way Arsenal like it. I think City might go 1-0 up. Arsenal will equalise, not from a corner. Gyökeres is going to score. You heard it here first, and then it's going to go all the way to penalties. I just think it's going to be so close. Both teams are going to be feeling each other out for an hour, I'd say. City, Arsenal aren't going to push anyone out. They're going to just stay in that shape that has, well, to be fair, it has suited them really well all season. It's why they're top of the league because they know how to keep things tight. But I think City are going to get this one over the line.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna fall on that side of it, but I want to make a bold statement that I think City would honestly be best served in this game by benching Haaland. I know it's a
Ooh.
bit crazy to say because he scored 5 and 7 against Arsenal, so maybe I'm mad, but I just think what we alluded to already about Gabriel is something he's become a master at this season of throwing himself on the ground in a way that gets himself free kicks and like diving all the time in positions where he can win. The refs get into the refs good books and see that, oh look, Haaland pushed me in the back, and this is something then that constantly goes and goes and goes the whole game as Haaland gets frustrated. Haaland has looked average this season. His goal scoring has been great, but his play on the ball has been horrendous at times. In the first leg against Madrid, he was woeful when he got the ball. I just think Marmoush, if he played and he was able to drag some of these Arsenal players all over the place, and he interchanged with the likes of Savinho and Semenyo and gave Arsenal a bit of confusion, I think it would work better. But maybe I'm mad. Maybe Haaland goes out here and bangs a couple of goals, but I just think that would be something that would make this game a bit more interesting. I think Arsenal are just going to win this in a frustrating way. I agree with you that it's going to be 1-1 in 90. And I just think everyone is going to want penalties just for the entertainment factor because the game has been so stodgy. And then Arsenal are going to score some kind of a crappy goal with like 5 minutes left in extra time, win it 2-1, and have wasted 2 hours of everybody's time. And everybody's going to leave after watching exactly what's expected of these two teams because Arsenal are just going to make this frustrating, and that's what they're going to want to do. One question I had in mind was what way Arsenal are going to line up in the attacking spots. So you think Gyökeres is a starter here?
Yeah, I think Gyökeres is a Saka, and I think to go back to Trossard off the right again, sorry, off the left, I think he really likes Trossard for games like this, just someone who's just going to work the absolute bones out of himself for 60 or 70 minutes, then bring on Martinelli or someone with a bit of pace. So, yeah, I don't think Odegaard starts. I think Eze starts over Odegaard again, especially after his goal against Bayer Leverkusen as well. He's clearly he's in a really good vein of form. And he's the kind of player, when he's in that vein of form, you need to keep playing him until he's out of it. And then you can drop him again and say, okay, you had to run. Time to get Odegaard back in for a bit more control. But now that I've said that, it wouldn't surprise me if we did start Odegaard for the more control.
Mm,
The man that's just going to press and press and press. He is his captain as well. So, yeah, I'm actually not going to try and pick the midfield. I'm going to say Saka, Trossard, and Gyökeres at the front three, and either Eze or Odegaard behind them.
yeah, I think it's
Can't believe
hard.
I talked myself out of that so quickly.
I don't think you're. I think you're definitely right about the front three because Trossard is the type of player that plays in this game. And then if you're going to say that he'll go with the Trossard route, then you might say he'll go Odegaard because that's the usual in big games. But Eze has definitely warranted a selection here, so I think in fairness' sake, it should be him. But we'll see what way they line up. And I'm pretty sure my take of Haaland on the bench is definitely not going to be coming through. But if it
No.
is, Pep heard it here. Just let you all know. He listens to this podcast, of course. But we definitely don't condone that wardrobe choice that he had against Madrid. Where on earth was he going with the lumberjack shirt on the sideline? Holy Christ. Just awful.
Especially when you're losing and you're losing quite badly, to come out with something like that, just wear something normal. Like,
Yeah,
it's like he couldn't galaxy brain on the pitch, so he galaxy brained his outfit and said, oh, Jesus.
yeah. So moving swiftly on from that to the Ireland squad and the game against Czechia next week. Obviously, we've mentioned it. You're going to Prague for the game. I believe you don't have a ticket, but you're going to be there for it
Not
anyway.
yet. Yeah.
Hopefully, you'll find your way in. But the squad was released today. I think we were discussing it. The only real misses from the squad are kind of through injury, the likes of Mikey Johnston and Evan Ferguson. The only player outside of that that isn't injured that I thought should have been in it was Amabami Delhi. I think he's been really good for Strasbourg, and they're doing well in Europe as well. So I think he deserved a selection, really, if I'm being honest here. But they've gone with John Egan for the kind of leadership, and Jimmy Dunn is a questionable one over him, I think,
Mm.
for me. I don't know if you've done this out, but I'm going to throw out what I hope the lineup is against Czechia, and I'm going with Kelleher in goal, of course. Coleman right wing back, O'Brien, Collins, and O'Shea three centre backs because Scales is suspended for the Czechia game. Manning left wing back. I don't think Brady is fit enough. Then Knight right mid, Malumbi and Azaz in the centre. Ogbene left mid. I know he hasn't played much lately, but he always tries his best for Ireland, and we need him. And then Parrott up top. That's what I think they'll go with, and what I hope they go with based on who's there. But would you make any changes to that?
No, to be honest, I wouldn't. The only one I would question is Ogbene. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, as a Limerick fan, I watched him up in the Marks Field. I love when he's starting for Ireland. It's just kind of such a full circle moment every time I see him step out in that pitch
Mm.
after watching him up in Demarcus Fields, but I think he's been playing under 21s football, so he does have minutes in his belt if they're not at the highest level. Other than that, I don't see too much more he can do, really. I think the forward options are very limited. Parrott, Ida, Johnny Kenny. I'm very surprised Johnny Kenny's after getting picked again. He was basically thrown out of Celtic. I think if anyone else had been fit, obviously if Ferguson was fit, then Johnny Kenny wouldn't be there. But he hasn't really done enough to be kind of warranting a place in an international squad. But you know what? It needs must. Good to see Sammy Smodic's back once he stays fit now and doesn't pull out of the squad
Yeah,
again.
pretends to be injured
But
again.
yeah, I think what you picked is pretty much nailed on what it will be, and I'm just really looking forward to getting over there now on Tuesday and just seeing what happens. I'm
Yeah,
actually I'm also really happy to see Bosun Lawal is back in.
yeah, that's great. I think that's a great selection, and Alan Brown as well deserves a
Yeah.
good bit of props for what he's been doing with Borough. He's been so good, and he's transitioned as well. He's playing wing back a bit as well, a full back, so he could come on anywhere that we need him, which I think is important. And Harvey Vale, I'd say he'll likely be someone that comes off the bench to make an impact going forward.
Hmm.
He's probably one of the only forwards that we have that can actually do a bit of something off the bench outside of Smodics. So moving to the game itself, it's going to be really tough. Look, Czechia lost away to the Faroes, Croatia, and Georgia in recent years. It's mad to lose to the Faroes 2-1, Croatia 5-1, and Georgia 4-1, so they're battered in those. But at home, they drew 0-0 with Croatia. Like, if you date back, they've only lost once at home since 2022, and that was against Turkey. And in that game, they got a man sent off, and they only conceded the goal to go 2-1 down in the 94th minute. So they are elite at home, really hard to beat. And I just think they're going to be really, really tough to break down for Ireland. I just think we can't do anything stupid. Just need to play our own game and a bit more of that kind of slow build up that we've had recently. Because if we start lumping the ball forward and then giving them it back every time and putting ourselves under pressure, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. So I think we need to hold on to the ball because we have some technically good players and some players that like to fight. Czechia will be hoping, I think, to defend and then grab a goal from a set piece with Suchek or something like that. But luckily, we've got some good defenders at set pieces. I just think that this is going to be a cagey affair. And if I'm to go out on a prediction, I'm going for a very, very, very nervous game where both teams don't want to lose, and Troy Parrott does his thing and gets us the winner in the 80th minute, and we win 1-0 with a KG last 10. I just think it's going to drive our nerves mad this game. It's just going to be tough watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be an awful watch, to be perfectly honest. I think it's going to be from minute one. I think we'll know how this is going to go after 5 minutes. Because if Ireland starts by humping the ball left, right, and centre, then we'll know that's where they're going to go for 90 minutes. And it's going to be, I don't know why I didn't, I meant to say lumping,
we're,
lumping the ball.
we're in a bad way if
Oh,
that's how it
God.
starts.
There we go. If we start lumping the ball in the first 5 minutes, then I think that's how the game is going to go. And we don't have Evan Ferguson up there to try and bring it down. Troy Parrott is obviously an absolute machine at the moment. He's just on fire. I think if anyone's going to score a goal, it will be him. I think Seamus Coleman is going to be so important if he is fit enough to get 70 or
Mm-hmm.
80 minutes out of him. Absolutely brilliant. I'm obviously back in Ireland to get through here, but I think it's going to be a really, really hard watch from start to finish.
Yeah. What would you go with your scoreline if you had to give it?
2-1.
Yeah, that's going to be nerve. If we concede a goal, I'm going to be not a good person to watch this game with because my nerves are going to be
Yeah.
shot. And I've got my ticket locked up for the next game with the season ticket, so praying we get there.
Hopefully it's not a
And
friendly.
yeah, I don't want to be watching some friendly against North Macedonia. But look, I would take the Danes the week after because we need our revenge over them. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
that they're probably the best team out of the four. I really hope we get there and we get to play them. So the next week, the game is going to be on Thursday next week. So we're probably going to record the podcast, myself and Michael, on Wednesday and get it out on the Thursday before the Ireland game. So the next time you'll be hearing from us, the two legs will both be done. And we'll either be over the moon, or we'll be in the World Cup, or we'll be extremely disappointed. So let's see.
Mm.
Let's see. Power rankings then to wrap us up. Do you want to go ahead first with your last week and then your updates?
Yeah, will do. So last week I had San Antonio Spurs at one, City at two, Thunder three, Arsenal four, Pistons five, United at six. So there is a couple of changes this week. One new team, but a lot of moves around. So Thunder have won 10 in a row since we were in last week. So they obviously are going to move up to number one. Again, they're back to being the best team in basketball. The Spurs dropped to two for me, so they're still 8 and two. And if the Thunder hadn't done what they have done, then the Spurs would still be top. But Spurs dropped to two. Arsenal come up to third. They're only one of only two English teams through in the Champions League, so they move up to third. The Lakers are 9-1 in the last week. It's very hard to leave them out, especially when the Pistons are struggling a bit at the moment. They're at 5-5. So the Lakers come in for the Pistons. United come up to fifth for me. They just keep rolling on. And last week I wanted to take them out. This week it's literally impossible. There's only three good teams in the Premier League this year, or at the moment, and the three of them are one, two, and three. So City, three wins, two draws, and they just about hang on at sixth place for me this week. Ireland will go in there next week when they get into the World Cup.
Yeah, they'll be top of that list. There's no doubt in it. We've got a very similar lineup here. So last week I had Thunder, Spurs, Pistons, Arsenal, City, and United. So I've still got the Thunder top. You mentioned it, 10 wins in a row. And more importantly for me is that they're 3.5 games ahead of the Spurs with only 15 games
Mm.
left. So the one seed seems to be locked. The Spurs, you already said 8-2 last 10. They have to be second. So they stay top two for me. Arsenal then are in third for me. Move up, same as you. Best team in the Premier League right now, and they're battling on all fronts. So they're in third. I've moved United up to fourth because I think recently they've been very solid, apart from that Newcastle game and a couple of questionable performances over the stretch before that. But since Carrick has come in, they've been great. So they're solidly in third in the league and fourth in my rankings here. Next up, it was between the Lakers and the Hawks. I just didn't want to put in the Lakers, to be honest. I preferred bringing in the Hawks because they've got 11 wins in a row. It's the longest streak in the NBA right now.
Okay.
Yeah, they're absolutely
Oh,
flying.
wow.
But the funny thing is, all it's done is move them up from the 9 seed to the 8 seed. So it shows how far back they were before they went on this streak. So right now they're up for me in fifth place, and then last is City. They haven't lost a Premier League game since the 17th of January, but they've been pretty stodgy lately across the Prem and also in the Champions League. They're out, so yeah, they just hold on because there's no one else really to pick in the Premier League. I wanted to put in Newcastle because they looked good in the Premier League lately, but then they got battered by Barca, so I can't be putting them in here. So that's my six: Thunder, Spurs, Arsenal, United, Hawks, and City. So that's
Yeah, and I think while I'm away next week, I think you and Michael should do an anti-power rankings. So pick the six worst teams across the two, and maybe I'll get a bit of enjoyment out of watching that when I come back. Just
yeah.
looking here at the Wizards and the Pacers last 10, they're both 0-10 in their last 10. So
That's just horrendous. Like,
wow,
I think the
absolutely
Pacers
wow,
are on
incredible.
their longest losing streak since sometime before the 2000s, or maybe it was early 2000s, and I think it's 12 in a row now they've lost. So they are
Bad.
just stinking it up, and Zubac is back for them as well. So that's makes it even more mad. But yeah, they've done the tanking thing very well. That's another episode done. As I mentioned, next week we'll be back on a Wednesday. It'll just be myself and Michael. Shane will be in Prague, so it'll be an NBA special. And we'll still get in Shane's power rankings and Gan Seans. We'll get those mailed into us from Prague. But that's it for another week. Shane, throw it to you to wrap it.
Yeah, lads. So really, really, really appreciate all the support again. Just keep hitting those buttons. We really do appreciate it. And I will see you in 2 weeks, hopefully on the way to a World Cup. Welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball with Shane and James.